So cars then gridding up, and you can see it is Jonathan Brown in the Cliff Dempsey racing machine that has the pole position. Luke Cooper alongside him, and either one of those two would be potential race winners for this race.
So good effort from him with strategy that's been adapted by the Luke Cooper team, and he's there on the front row. Third on the grid is the champion of the national championship 2019, Ross Martin. Dolan, Van Diemen, RS99. He was the national champion.
So yeah, the front row of the grid, a very competitive front row for this race. Ross Martin in the white car, the 19 champion, and this second heat could turn into an even more competitive affair than the first one. As you can see there is fresh rain falling. It's definitely still slippery out there, and the cars will, the drivers will have to really hunt for grip once the race does get going, and that, as we saw in the first race, leads often to some very entertaining side-by-side racing, but also maybe the odd collision and mistake along the way. Hopefully we'll see not too much of that though, because we want to see another clean race here and see who comes out on top in heat number 2, brought to you by Whiz Wheels, the aimshop.com Formula Ford Festival, once again providing thrills and spills aplenty, and we've only had the first heat, and so many drivers looking to try and make their way through to that final, add their name to the illustrious list of winners. I mean, if you ever get a chance to visit Brands Hatch, and I urge you to do so if you're a motor racing fan, this is really a bit of a mecca for motor racing. As you can see there, by the way, extra formation lap for all of the races at the moment because of the change of conditions. But yeah, if you get the chance to come here to Brands Hatch, head over to the Kentagon, which is the bar and restaurant just the outside of the first corner, in which you will see a plaque which has a list of all of the winners of the Formula Ford Festival over the years. And what a list it is. The first ever Brands Hatch Festival, won by Derek Daly, who of course went on to have a successful Formula 1 career. After that point, we had the likes of Julian Bailey, Johnny Herbert, Roland Ratzenberger, Eddie Irvine, Vincenzo Sospiri, Jan Magnussen, Mark Goosens, Russell Ingall. It goes on and on. Mark Webber, Jenson Button, Anthony Davidson, and even our more recent festival winners have enjoyed success. We were talking about Josh Smith in that previous heat, how he's gone on to be a McLaren development driver and competing successfully in the British GT Championship with Tolman Motorsport in a McLaren this year, and it goes to show that even these days the Formula Ford Festival is still worth winning. It still is a valid step on the motor racing ladder. Formula Ford racing on the whole is, but the festival and Walter Hayes Trophy, the two end of season events, often do generate that little bit of extra interest, and so if you can add a festival title to your CV, it's almost, if not as significant as having a national championship on there, just because this is such a hard event to win. 70 drivers, only one driver can win it, and to do that you've got to get through the heats in one piece, you've got to get through the semi-final not only in one piece but preferably towards the front, so you get a good grid position for the final, and then you have to survive 20 minutes of the most intense racing you've probably ever experienced up to that point in your career. You'll see tomorrow afternoon when we get to the grand final, sponsored by aimshop.com, that the racing over those 20 laps will be awe-inspiring. It's always really close. It's always that little bit more aggressive, not dirty, but the drivers know there is only one position that matters in that race, and that is first position. If you don't win the final, you may as well have not bothered turning up. And so when we get to that race tomorrow afternoon, things are really going to further intensify, and you'll feel that as the weekend goes on, with every heat race, with every last chance race, with every semi-final. The intensity ratchets up another notch, and by the time you get to the final at the end of the weekend, things really do hit fever pitch. Not much risk of anyone catching fever today though, is there, because it's rather chilly at Brands Hatch, very damp indeed, the rain coming down arguably more heavily now than it has done at any point this weekend, or today at least, and the drivers therefore enjoying the chance here to take a second green flag lap and try and suss out the conditions around the circuit. Standing water is not always a huge issue at Brands Hatch. If there's any one part of the circuit where water can collect, though, it's on the apex at Graham Hill Bend, that third corner, the first of the left-handers, and that can cause trouble, particularly on the opening lap. So tension starts to build, cars start to arrive on the grid ahead of our second heat then. Jonathan Brown on pole position, Luke Cooper two red and white cars on the front of the grid. It's the white-nosed car of Cooper that lines up second, and then our current champion, Ross Martin, third, Michael Eastwell fourth, Chris Middlehurst is in fifth position, and sixth place for Ivor McCulloch, who is the top Irish driver in this race. Zach Vanier there, the second of the Cliff Dempsey cars, seventh on the grid. He'll be one to watch, no doubt, as indeed will half of the grid, all of whom will believe that, particularly with these conditions, the rain being a great leveller as always, they might have the chance to get up there and fight for a really good position, not just get themselves qualified for a semi-final. Heat number 2 then, sponsored by Whiz Wheels here at the aimshop.com Formula Ford Festival, bursts into life with a terrible start made by Vanier there, the Canadian driver, going nowhere. He's stranded in front of the pack. The car now gets going, but we already have a candidate for fight back of the race here, don't we? Because the Canadian Zachary Vanier is going to have to come through from the very back of the field. It's a Cliff Dempsey car, though, that does lead the way. Jonathan Brown out in front with Eastwell into second position, and Luke Cooper third. Diving up the inside there was Chris Middlehurst, trying to take that position away, though, as they went into Druid's corner for the first time. Let's hope they all get through safely. They have, and it is still Cooper that's in third, then ahead of the number 2 of Middlehurst, but Middlehurst with a feisty start to the race. Then I think it's Ivan McCulloch next in line, where he started in 5th place, but a perfect start there for Brown. Arguably the best start, though, made by Michael Eastwell. The outside line sometimes is the better place to start here at Brands Hatch because the track slopes quite steeply down to the pit wall on the inside. Ross Martin, though, is going backwards here, isn't he? Look, he's behind Ivan McCulloch now, just ahead of Alan Davidson. So Ross Martin, the 2019 champion, is certainly not going to come through in the third position in which he started. He's down to about 5th place, I reckon. Trying to fight back, though, around the outside of Ivan McCulloch here as they go towards Paddock Hill Bend, and Ross Martin gets his nose back in front. He was classified 5th at the line, and he seals the deal into the first corner. Chris Middlehurst there on the inside of Luke Cooper for third, and did he make that stick through Paddock Hill Bend? I think he did, yes. So Middlehurst then into a podium spot now, and we'll try and chase after the top 2, who are Jonathan Brown and Michael Eastwell. They were separated by 0.34 of a second at the end of the opening lap. One car sideways over the curb there, going through Druids, and they've spun, and that is oh yes, it's McCulloch, 27 McCulloch, that's been tagged there by, was that Rivette possibly, or no, Sharp? I think it was Jamie Sharp possibly that went up the inside, the 311 car of Jamie Sharp. So those two have dropped right down the order. So we've got 2 or 3 drivers that are potentially out of promotional spots that have to try and fight their way back into that all-important top 16, to get an automatic semi-final berth. So a dramatic start to this race. And Vanier, by the way, completed the opening lap in 19th, so he only needs to get 3 more places to get into a semi-final position. The rest of the field, though, make their way across the start-finish line onto their 3rd lap of racing. And it was Brown that led the way. Eastwell, though, in second place, has just set the fastest lap, so he was fractionally quicker, but only fractionally quicker than Jonathan Brown. Nice battles going on further back there. That's the 101 car of Blair, I believe, trying to fend off Jamie Sharp, who we can confirm was the man that tangled there with McCulloch. So Sharp dropped down to 15th, Ivan McCulloch down to 17th, so both he and Vanier then are outside of the semi-final positions at the moment, albeit they should have the speed as long as they stay out of trouble to work their way back into them before the end of the race. Right, what can Michael Eastwell do then about Jonathan Brown? He's caught the race leader. He looks a bit quicker. Brown understeering his way there through Surtees corner. And these two drivers both looking to try and end their season on a high after, for various reasons, for the two of them, slightly disappointing years up to this point. And Michael Eastwell, in particular here, trying to continue this run of wins that he's had in the second half of the season. Closing in on Jonathan Brown. They flash across the line. Another new fastest lap goes to Eastwell, although it very briefly was held by Jonathan Brown, and then it's snatched by Ross Martin. So Ross Martin in 4th position, who's ahead of Luke Cooper now, is the fastest man on the track by some way, half a second quicker than the race leader. You can see Ross Martin in the background in 4th position. He's already on the tail of Chris Middlehurst, his teammate, and you'd imagine Chris won't make this too difficult for him, although you never know. Drop down the hill again, and Jonathan Brown and Michael Eastwell may shortly have company from Scottish driver Ross Martin, who is on the tail of the 3rd place man Chris Middlehurst. Martin in his Van Diemen, both of them in Van Diemens in fact, but it's a Ray that leads the way, the Cliff Dempsey Ray of Jonathan Brown, the Spectrum of Eastwell 2nd, then a pair of Van Diemens ahead of the Swift of Cooper in 5th, and the Mondial in 6th of Alan Davidson. So nice variety there up towards the sharp end of the field. Out of clearways and Clark Curve, though. How aggressive is Eastwell willing to be here? He will really want to win this race, but he also knows that it's not the be-all and end-all. As long as he gets a podium finish at the very least in this race, I think he'll be satisfied. and he knows that Jonathan Brown isn't going to make it easy for him. They come through with, this time, Middlehurst in third, the only man improving his time. He was not quite as quick as Ross Martin, though, in fourth position. So Martin's still the fastest of the leading quartet, but they are all starting to concertina together a little bit. Ooh. Eastwell very quick out of Druids there, but there's nowhere to go, really. Searching around for the grip, but unless he can force a mistake out of Jonathan Brown here, or force Jonathan to drive defensively, they're both sort of running the same line, therefore they're running the same sort of pace around the Brands Hatch Indy Circuit at the moment. This the fifth lap of the race, and we'll be at 1/3 distance in this second heat of the festival before too much longer. Heading up towards the end of another lap then. Through clearways they go. This is the fight for third then. Chris Middlehurst, the white and orange car. The white, blue and yellow there is Ross Martin in fourth position. They've got 3 seconds in hand over Luke Cooper behind them. Alan Davidson is losing ground. He's down to 8th place now. Matt Rivette and Kenneth Cowie have got through. Now Kenneth Cowie in the 196 Magal has come through to 7th position from 11th on the grid, so he's had a really good race so far. Down the hill through Paddock they go. Leading four continuing to get closer together, because Middlehurst that time set the fastest lap. So the third place man, car number 2, Chris Middlehurst, does a 1 minute 1.86, which was about 2 tenths quicker than the leader. The lead gap is 2 tenths between Brown and Eastwell. Eastwell then a second and a half ahead of Middlehurst, who's got Martin right on his gearbox, and then a 4.4 second gap back to Cooper, and actually quite a difference in pace. The leaders are all in the 1 minute 1s and low 1 minute 2s, whereas Cooper is, on his previous lap, was a 1 minute 3.4, so he's a second a lap slower at the moment than the cars ahead of him. Here is some of the battling going on behind. Number 96 going through is Pascal Monbaran, who's just got himself ahead of Bryce Aaron, the 16-year-old American driver, who's in 11th place now. Just ahead of Peter Hardman, the number 6 car. Then Ivan McCulloch. So McCulloch is into 13th, so he's back into a transfer spot now, if you like. Vanier, though, is not. The Canadian driver is still only 17th. I wouldn't mind picking out the number 24 Cliff Dempsey racing car if we could, the Team Canada scholarship driver, because he has, off the road is Ross Martin. Is that Ross Martin at Paddock Hill Bend? It is. The number 11 car from 4th position has thrown the car off the road at the first corner, and well, he'll rejoin, but a long way further back from where he was. He will lose 4th position to Luke Cooper, but he was very, very lucky to get out of the gravel trap there. So an off at Paddock for Ross Martin. It's rare that you get away without damage when you go off at that corner, but he did get away with it. Right, there is Vanier, who is now into the transfer spots. He's 15th at the start of the lap, so well picked out there, guys, to find him in the middle of the field. But Vanier in the number 24 Ray then, in fact, he may have even gained another place. Yeah, he's ahead now of the number 30 car of Steve Barlow, so actually he's into 14th spot now. So everyone we sort of expected to be in the top 16 is once again in the top 16, but it's been a breathless of them, and they've had a few more dramas than they'd have liked. Vanier perhaps a little inexperienced at starting these cars, certainly in the wet conditions here at Brands Hatch. Heads out of clearways and Clark curves, sets about finding a way past his next victim, which would be Peter Hardman in the number 6 car. He gets the inside of Peter across the start-finish line, and will go through into Paddock Hill Bend. So Vanier then up another spot now. 13th place belongs to the young Canadian. That was a really nice move there as well. Got the toe across the start-finish line, went to the inside, which is not to the grippiest side of the road, and did manage to pick his way through. So this is the battle that's going on behind. Now, is this the 16th place? I think it might be, because the number 29 car, which is James Hadfield, is on the bubble at the moment. It's hard to see numbers on cars at the moment, but he's the second car in shot, the orange machine. The silver and black and yellow car behind him, number 101, that's Andrew Blair. He's the man on the outside looking in at the moment. So the orange car and the silver car, one of them at the moment is in a semi-final position, the other one is not. And as you can see in this race, more so than in the first heat, there's a fairly competitive battle going on here to not be outside of the top 16. So we'll monitor this with interest to see if anything changes. Nothing's changing at the front of the field, so you're not missing much right at the sharp end, although Chris Middlehurst has caught the race leader Jonathan Brown and brought Michael Eastwell, in fact he's ahead of Michael Eastwell now. So it has changed at the front then. Still Brown leading the way, but Middlehurst into 2nd place now. Eastwell down to 3rd, and this the battle for 15th, 16th and 17th places. So 2 of these cars at the moment would go through, but the one that's running in 15th place is Steve Barlow. He runs a bit wide there at Paddock Hill Bend. That just holds everybody up on the run up Halewood Hill. And Blair sees his chance to go to the outside. This is for 16th position, a place within the semi-finals, but it doesn't work on this occasion. He finds that the outside is not giving him as much grip as he might have liked, and so he settles in behind. And they're also being joined now, aren't they, by Mark Armstrong, the top classic Formula Ford star. And as they run down the Cooper Straight, the positions stay as they are, but the battle continues to intensify. Now, as far as the leaders are concerned, I think we may have to drag our eyes away from this before too much longer, because we've got 3 cars for the lead. Middlehurst is absolutely flying and has now not only taken second place away from Michael Eastwell, but he's caught the race leader Jonathan Brown. Lots of different lines being taken at clearways, but ultimately no positions changing hands. And they come back through then to complete their 9th lap of the race. The leaders, though, are on to the top, the 10th lap, so they're nearly 2/3 of the way through, and they're about half a lap ahead of this group actually now, as they run through Paddock Hill Bend. And yep, still no way through for Blair. But well, let's have a look to see. Oh, Truett's corner is a possible overtaking opportunity. And in fact, around the outside now goes Hadfield, trying to find a way past Steve Barlow to get himself one position further up the order and away from the danger zone, but that doesn't work either. And they head down then through Graham Hill Bend. It's still the order unchanged, but a sideways moment there for Peter Hardman as he comes out of the corner. Hadfield, trying to get up the inside of Barlow, I should say. But to no avail as they head through Surtees corner. Out of Druids they go. These, though, are the race leaders, and look, they're in traffic now, and all of a sudden Jonathan Brown has his work really cut out. He's trying to get past some of the slower runners and also trying to keep a fired up Chris Middlehurst behind him. Chris, I think it's fair to say, was not the pre-race favourite, but he right now looks as though he's the fastest driver out there. He's got the fastest lap and he's hunting around now to try and find a way past Jonathan Brown. Through Surtees they go, up towards the end of the 11th lap of racing. We'll have 4 laps to go after this one, and Jonathan Brown is forced to go to the inside of a back marker. This means he'll be really slow off the corner, and Middlehurst, if he can negotiate the slower car more quickly, might be able to get in the tow across the line, but they're both scrabbling for grip, and actually Brown will be further ahead of Middlehurst than Middlehurst is of Eastwell as they complete the 11th lap. And the top 3 covered by less than a second now, with a personal best last time round being set by Luke Cooper in 4th. But Luke is about 12 seconds behind this lot now. Another back marker, I think that's Stuart Kestenbaum, that they're trying to negotiate, and all of a sudden Middlehurst is on the defensive here, trying to keep Michael Eastwell at bay. The right-hander at Druids, and Middlehurst just needs to try and keep his composure here. The traffic is always going to mess with your rhythm, but I don't think there's that much more traffic to be dealt with now for the rest of the race, so he might be able to start finding his rhythm, get back into that sort of pace that he was showing a few laps ago when he was by far and away the quickest driver on the circuit. His fastest lap, 1:01.7, is 2.5 tenths quicker than Jonathan Brown has gone at any point in this race. So we know that he's got the potential to do this, but is he now too focused on retaining second position? Top 3 then in the same shot as they come through clearways out onto Clark Curve to complete the 12th lap this time around. And still any one of these 3 you sense could win the race. But as we get into the closing stage, and are they maybe going to be content to just retain the positions that they're in? I can tell you, by the way, we have had a change for 16th place now as well, because Andrew Blair has got himself ahead of Simon Hadfield. James Hadfield, excuse me. So James Hadfield has dropped out of a transfer spot now, significantly. Blair getting in. Also had a change for 6th place. In fact, Alan Davidson and Jamie Sharp have both got past Matt Rivette. So changing up and down the order, but we'll focus on the top 3 now because they're coming out of Graham Hill Bend and along the Cooper Straight. 6/10 of a second was the lead gap at the start of the lap. I'd say it's come down on this 13th lap of the race, though, and all 3 of them are now going to come through Surtees together. Big sideways moment there for Middlehurst through the left-hander, and that may have tempted Eastwell into having a go, but they all know that the inside line at Clearways is treacherous, and no one really wants to take a dive up the inside. Middlehurst had a really good exit, though, from Clearways corner this time. He's in the slipstream now as they come across the start-finish line, and what was a 6/10 of a second gap is now a 3/10 of a second gap, and Chris Middlehurst, with 2 laps to go, can he pry this victory away from Jonathan Brown? This second heat of the event, sponsored by Whiz Wheels, has been an absolute barnstormer, and it is not over yet. Chris Middlehurst moves on to the tail now, well and truly, of Jonathan Brown. Less than a car length between really the top 3 cars as they turn through the right-hander at Druids. Slowest corner on the track, then back down the hill again into Graham Hill Bend. And who gets the better exit from here? They all try and take the widest line possible without running too wide over the curbs and the grass. Jonathan Brown is going to have his work cut out. Now he'll have to make that the widest Formula Ford car here at Brands Hatch in order to keep these two hard chargers behind him. 3 different chassis in the top 3 as well. Ray Van Diemen and Spectrum all represented, and Middlehurst again is the more sideways of the 3 as they turn through Surtees. Through the final corner then, 1 more lap to go. Are we going to see any changes within our top 3 positions, or is Jonathan Brown going to be able to bring it home? He's got a reasonably comfortable cushion going on to this final lap, at least by the standards of what has been a hugely competitive race, this one, as we sort of thought it might be. And Brown heads through Paddock Hill Bend. Still the race leader, perilously close to those painted curbs, which are like ice in the wet, but you need to get close to them. Just not too close, because if you do run over them, you'll be all over the road and possibly off it, which is actually what Michael Eastwell nearly finds himself doing at Druids Corner. Ran very wide there into the braking zone. Now that actually plays quite nicely to the hands of Chris Middlehurst, because it means that he's no longer under pressure from the car behind. He can spend this final half a lap focusing entirely on getting past Jonathan Brown. Slower car gets out of the way nicely. That won't therefore affect our lead battle. May delay possibly Michael Eastwell in third. But there is only 1 more corner to go, and Jonathan Brown, I think, as long as he doesn't make any mistakes here, should have this one more or less in the bag. Through Clearway's corner they come. Chris Middlehurst trying everything he can here to get the lead away, but it's not going to happen. And the victory in the second Formula Ford Festival heat of the weekend, sponsored by Whiz Wheels, goes to Jonathan Brown. A brilliant defensive drive in very challenging conditions, and it is a first victory of the weekend as well for Cliff Dempsey Racing, who takes the victory by just half a second. Chris Middlehurst in second, and Michael Eastwell on the podium in third position. Luke Cooper fourth, eventually should come home in fourth place, but he did have pressure actually from Ross Martin, and I can see out of the window they came across the line side by side, but Cooper held on to fourth position with Ross Martin in fifth, Jamie Sharp sixth, seventh place for Alan Davidson, eighth Matt Rivette, ninth across the line now is Ivan McCulloch, and then 10th position for Vanier. So Vanier came through into the top 10 there by the end. Not bad, given the fact that he was absolutely last as the race got underway. 24th position, and he managed to work his way into not only a transfer spot, but into the top 10 as well. Also transferring to a semi-final automatically will be 11th place Kenneth Cowie, 12th place Pascal Montbaron, 13th place Bryce Aaron, 14th Peter Hardman, 15th James Hadfield, and 16th in the end did go to Steve Barlow. So he got back ahead again of Andrew Blair there towards the end of the race. So Barlow gets himself into 16th. Blair, though, will have a front row starting position, or top 3 starting position as a bare minimum for his last chance race later on. So Blair, Armstrong, Kestenbaum, Campbell, Walton, Hughes, Stewart and Whitbourne will be the 8 drivers, that will go through to the last chance race. So we momentarily, I think, will be able to head down to the pit lane to hear from our race winner, Jonathan Brown, who will be, I think, a little bit worn out after that victory, but it puts him in a very, very nice position going into the semi-final. As I said, he'll be guaranteed a front row starting position in one of the semis. The fastest semi-final gets the pole position. Second fastest semi-final winner is second on the grid, and the third fastest semi-final winner will be also pole position there for their respective heat, basically. So it's they will split the heat winners up to an extent, but there will be only 2 semi-finals, whereas of course there are 3 heats, so there is a bit of amalgamation of grids that goes on. We'll get to that later on, because we've still got a third heat to come as well, and an equally competitive grid that we've got heading out for the final 15-minute heat of the weekend for the aimshop.com Formula Ford Festival here at Brands Hatch. A soggy Brands Hatch, but thankfully there are a fair few people that are braving the conditions here this weekend. Many of you, I'm sure, enjoying watching from the comfort, warmth and dry conditions of your own home. Can't say I blame you either, really. And we hope you're enjoying the coverage here at Brands Hatch. Plenty more where that came from. Still got another heat to go, plus the last chance race later on. Right then, let's head down then to the pit lane where we've got Joe with our Heat 2 race winner.
Jonathan, well done. A lot of pressure. The back markers helped you in the middle of the race a little bit and gave you a small breather, but still a lot of pressure and some tricky conditions.
Yeah, no, it's not an easy race. Back markers definitely compromised us in some areas but helped in others. So kind of look at the draw, but you know, we were quick where we needed to be off traction. So they couldn't get us down the straight, which was good.
You made it straight, obviously, into the semi-final, but the chances are it's going to be dry tomorrow, so you can throw that setup away now.
Yeah, well, you never know. So it is England. So we're quick in the dry, we're quick on the wet. So we'll hopefully be talking to you again tomorrow.
Tell me, with the heats, obviously, you need to get a good result to put you in a good position for the semi-final, but if Chris was to start attacking you at the end of the race, how much of a fight were you going to put up?
I don't know. The main thing is to make it to the end. So, if we don't survive the heats, then we're out. So, I don't know. It's difficult to tell. Luckily, he didn't go for it, but
He was close.
He was coming quick, yeah. But we're just quick enough.
Well done.
Thank you.